It's 6:14 in the morning on a Thursday, and you're standing in the walk-in cooler of a grocery store, breath fogging in front of you, counting cases of milk before the delivery truck backs in. Your gloves have a hole in the thumb you keep meaning to replace. Out in the parking lot, your car is a 2009 Toyota Corolla with a passenger mirror held on by packing tape because you clipped a shopping cart corral 2 winters ago and never got around to fixing it. It runs. That's the whole review. Your coworker Andre pulls in around 6:40 in a brand new Silverado, the kind with the chrome package, and you hear him before you see him because the exhaust is tuned to announce itself. He parks it across 2 spaces, not out of arrogance exactly, just habit. The habit of a man who likes people to notice what he drives. Your car is worth maybe $1,800. Your investment accounts are worth $346,000. Nobody stocking shelves with you knows that. Not your shift lead. Not Andre. Not the assistant manager who once asked, not unkindly, if you needed help filling out a form for a payday advance. You didn't correct him. There was no clean way to. This isn't a secret you're keeping so much as a fact that never has anywhere to land in a normal conversation. Nobody asks a stock clerk what his portfolio is doing. And even if someone did, you're not sure you'd tell them the truth. Here's the part nobody puts in the highlight reel. Getting quietly wealthy doesn't feel like a movie montage. Most mornings, it feels like a cooler at 6:14 and a mirror held on with tape. You finish the count, radio it in, and go clock in for a shift you technically don't need anymore at a job that has no idea what it's looking at. This is where that started, 11 years earlier. You're 22. You've got $340 in a checking account and a mattress on a metal frame in a 1-bedroom you share with a roommate named Colin who works nights at a warehouse. The apartment is above a dry cleaner, and some evenings the chemical smell drifts up through the vents, and you stop noticing it within a few weeks the way you stop noticing most things you can't change. Rent is your half, $610. The job is $15, 85 cents an hour at a big box hardware store, unloading trucks and stocking aisle 14, and overtime shows up some weeks and vanishes other weeks depending on who's scheduling. The Corolla is already 6 years old when you get it, bought off a lot for $5,400 cash, money you'd scrape together doing landscaping on weekends the summer before. There's a woman on your crew, Delphine, who's worked there almost 17 years. She's not a supervisor. She just runs the same forklift every shift and eats the same egg salad sandwich at the same folding table at lunch. One day, waiting on a pallet jack, she says something you don't think about again for a long time. Whatever you're gonna save, she says, save it before it hits your pocket. Not after. Before. Then she goes back to her sandwich like she didn't just hand you something. You do nothing with it for almost 4 months. Then a guy on the loading dock mentions the company matches retirement contributions, 50 cents on the dollar up to 3%, and the words free money finally register. You log into the benefits app on your break and bump your contribution to 3%. It comes out to $19 a paycheck. You don't feel the difference. That turns out to be the entire mechanism, though you don't know it yet. 5 months after that, you open a plain taxable brokerage account and set up an automatic draft, $40 a month into a total market index fund. You picked the fund because it came up first when you typed "is index investing safe" into a search bar at 1 a.m., and because a forum post said the fees were low and you trusted the forum post more than you probably should have. $40 a month is nothing. It's a tank of gas. But it's also the first time money has left your hands without you having to argue with yourself about it every single time. Then the transmission starts slipping. $290 to fix, and for 3 days you seriously consider yanking the $40 back out of the brokerage account to cover it. You don't. You put it on a card and pay it down over 6 weeks, irritated with yourself the entire time. That specific tension, the automatic draft pulling one way and real life pulling the other, becomes the shape of the next several years. 2 years go by, then a third. Nothing happens. That's not a complaint. That's just an accurate description of what compounding looks like while it's compounding. You get bumped to $17, 10 cents an hour, and instead of upgrading your apartment or your car, you raise the automatic draft to $120 a month, mostly because you'd never built the raise into your spending in the first place. The extra money simply had nowhere else assigned to go. Andre gets hired around this time, a year or 2 behind you. But he moves fast, gets promoted to a lead role before you do, and celebrates by financing that Silverado, $587 a month for 72 months. He's not being foolish. He worked hard for the promotion, and the truck is the thing he wanted. You don't think less of him for it, though you notice the payment is almost exactly what you spend on rent. His apartment complex has a pool. Yours has a laundry room that smells like bleach and mildew in equal parts. If a stranger watched the two of you in the break room on any given Tuesday, they'd have no reason to guess which one of you was quietly building something and which one was spending it as fast as it arrived. It didn't look like a contest. It just felt like $120 a month leaving an account you'd basically stop checking. You knock out a $2,300 credit card balance that had been sitting there since a bad stretch involving a root canal, and you don't celebrate it. You just notice one Sunday that the balance reads 0 and stays there. By 24, the retirement account and the brokerage account combined cross $9,600. You only know this because you check on a rainy Sunday with nothing else to do. You don't mention it to anyone. There's no occasion for it. It's a number sitting in an app next to your grocery list and a half-finished playlist. At 25, you get a real raise, up to $19.40 an hour with a small quarterly bonus tied to store performance, and you bump the draft to $260 a month. Adjusting it the same night the raise hits before the extra cash has a chance to feel like spending money. Your cousin Renata, meanwhile, closes on a townhouse that year. 3 bedrooms, a little patio, granite in the kitchen she photographs constantly. From every visible angle she's winning. New SUV in the driveway, designer bag, a trip to Cabo that fills up everyone's feed for a week. You won't find out for years that her mortgage runs $2,180 a month against a salary not far above yours, that the SUV is leased, that the Cabo trip is still showing up on a statement she doesn't talk about. None of that is a judgment on her. It's just a different set of choices made with roughly the same information you had. The Corolla, meanwhile, crosses 150,000 miles. The mirror gets clipped that spring, the tape goes on, and you keep meaning to get it properly fixed for something like $260 and never quite do. Your old coworker Priya, from a previous job, texts to catch up that summer. Asks what's new. You tell her. Same job, same apartment, nothing exciting. You don't mention the accounts. It genuinely doesn't occur to you that there's anything worth mentioning. From the outside, 3 years pass and nothing happens. From the inside, $120 turns into $260 turns into $8,100 in new contributions alone, quietly, the way a tide comes in without anyone clocking the exact wave that moved the shoreline. At 27, the combined accounts cross $48,000. This is the number that actually makes you stop. You're on the couch on a Sunday, phone in hand, and you sit there staring at it for a solid minute before closing the app. $48,000 is real in a way $9,600 never quite was. It's a down payment. It's most of a year of rent. It's the kind of number that opens a different conversation in your own head, one about what any of this is actually building toward. 6 weeks later, the market drops 17% in about 2 months. The $48,000 becomes $39,800 without you touching a thing. You watch it happen in real time, checking the app more than you'd like to admit, and for the first time since Delphine's comment on the loading dock, discipline stops being a nice idea and turns into something you actually have to practice. The automatic draft is still scheduled for the 3rd of the month. You think hard about pausing it. Everything is red. It feels like feeding cash into a shredder. You don't pause it. You're honestly not sure afterward whether that was discipline or just momentum, whether the habit had gotten so automatic that stopping it would have required a decision you no longer knew how to make. Either way, the draft goes through on the 3rd, buying more shares at a lower price than they cost 6 weeks earlier, though you don't fully appreciate what that means until much later. The market recovers over the following year and change. The account crosses $48,000 again, then keeps climbing past it. That same stretch, a real temptation shows up, not a crash this time, a choice. Andre's Silverado needs a new transmission around the same month your Corolla starts making a clicking sound on cold mornings that a mechanic eventually traces to a worn CV joint, $340 to fix. Nothing urgent, nothing that demands a new car. But you look at a dealership site anyway one night, half as a joke. A newer Corolla, a payment of $310 a month for 5 years. You run the math without meaning to. $310 a month is more than your current car insurance and gas combined. It's more, in fact, than your entire investment draft that month. You sit with that number longer than you expect to. You don't buy the car. You fix the CV joint instead. But something shifts that night anyway. Not toward deprivation exactly, more toward a sharper sense that every dollar already has a job, and the job it's doing right now is one you don't want to pull it off of. By 30, the combined accounts sit at $187,000. Contributions are up to $610 a month between retirement and taxable after 2 more raises and a move into a shift lead role. Better pay, steadier hours, same Corolla in the lot. Something starts happening around this time that you don't notice right away because it doesn't announce itself with a headline. You check the account one Sunday and it's grown $2,300 from the month before. You put in $610 of that. The rest came from nowhere you did anything for. The next month, it happens again, a different amount. Some months, the market hands you more than you contributed. Some months, it takes some back. Averaged out over the year, though, the growth from money already sitting in the market starts running neck and neck with the growth from money you're actively adding. The paycheck and the portfolio, for the first time, pulling roughly equal weight. Nobody warns you this moment is coming, so when it arrives, you almost don't notice it. It isn't a bell. It's a quiet handoff of who's actually doing the work. That winter, the water heater in your apartment complex floods and the landlord bills you $890 for the unit repair, the kind of expense that would have gone straight onto a credit card 5 years earlier, with a genuine knot in your stomach 3 years before that. This time, you pay it from savings without checking any other balance first. It doesn't occur to you to check. That's new. Andre's truck payment is still $587 a month, 6 years in, because he traded up into a newer one right after paying off the first. He's not miserable about it. He likes the truck. You don't judge him for it. He earns more than you do on paper now, and he can afford the choice he's making. It's just a different choice than the one compounding quietly under your name. Renata sells the townhouse that year for a modest gain after fees and moves into a rental, citing the market, and you don't press her on it. You genuinely don't know how her numbers shook out, and it isn't your business to ask. The Corolla passes 190,000 miles. The taped mirror has been retaped twice. You finally price out a proper repair, $240, and decide again it isn't worth the hassle. At this point, it's stopped being about the money. It's just a habit, the way some people always take the window seat or always keep the receipt. There's a moment that fall you come back to later. A coworker, let go without warning when the store restructures its overnight crew, asks how you'd handle it if it happened to you. You do the math in your head before you answer. The emergency fund, the taxable account you could draw from without touching retirement. The fact that 6 months without a paycheck would be uncomfortable but not dangerous. You tell her you'd be fine, and hearing yourself say it out loud, you realize you mean it. At 32, a store manager position opens up. It would mean a $9,000 raise, weekend rotations, and the kind of visibility you'd have chased hard 6 years earlier. You turn it down. Not because you couldn't handle it, because when you sit with the actual number, weighed against roughly 50 extra hours a month you'd never get back, it doesn't move anything that matters anymore. The combined accounts are near $402,000 by then. The math has shifted far enough that an extra $9,000 a year buys less freedom than those 50 hours would cost you. It's the first purely financial decision in this whole stretch that has nothing to do with saving money. It's about refusing to trade time for a number that doesn't need you anymore. That spring your father's truck dies, a blown head gasket, 19 years old, not worth fixing. You send him $3,800 for a decent used one without discussing terms, without running a spreadsheet, without first checking whether you can afford it, because you already know you can. He tries to argue. You tell him it's already done. It's the easiest $3,800 decision you've ever made, and the ease of it is what surprises you most. Your old roommate Colin reaches out about a guaranteed crypto arbitrage thing that needs a $12,000 buy-in and promises returns that don't survive even a rough sanity check. You look at it for one evening, run the numbers twice, and pass. 5 years earlier, the promised return alone might have pulled you in. Now you can see the shape of it clearly enough to walk away without agonizing over it. You're still driving the Corolla. People at work have started asking, gently, if you're finally going to replace it. You tell them you're thinking about it. You've been thinking about it for 5 years. The truth is, the car stopped needing to say anything about you a while ago. It never told the truth about you to begin with. Not when it stood for being broke, and not now, when it stands for something closer to not caring what the parking lot thinks. That's the kind of freedom nobody puts on a billboard. It isn't the pool or the granite countertops. It's not needing the lot to agree with you. At 34, the accounts cross $610,000. On paper, you're what most people mean when they say wealthy. Nobody around you would guess it, which was more or less the plan: quiet accumulation, no announcement. But the plan has costs you didn't fully anticipate. Andre asks you one night over beers, half joking, when you're going to start living like he has. He means the truck, the apartment with the pool, the trips he posts. You laugh it off and don't correct him. And driving home afterward in the Corolla, you feel something you don't have a clean word for. Not superiority. Not guilt. Something closer to distance. The sense that you and Andre have worked the same store for a decade and somehow ended up somewhere that can't be measured on the same ruler anymore, and neither of you can quite say that out loud. Your mother asks, carefully, if you're doing all right, money-wise. She's seen the Corolla parked outside, mirror still taped, and worries the way mothers do. You tell her you're fine. You don't give her the number, because the number would change how she talks to you, how she asks for things, how holidays feel afterward. You watched it happen to an uncle who came into money and turned, overnight, into the rich one in every family conversation, a role that flattened out everything else about him. You're not ready to become a role. There's a specific kind of loneliness in that, the kind nobody warns you about. You built something real, mostly alone, over a decade of automatic drafts and unremarkable Wednesdays, and there's almost no one you can tell about it without changing the relationship in the telling. You start seeing someone named Jules around this time, a vet tech who drives a 12-year-old Civic with 170,000 miles of her own, and the first time she's over, she notices a brokerage statement on the counter by accident. She doesn't say much about it. A few weeks later, she mentions, almost in passing, that she's been meaning to open an investment account and never got around to it. You don't lecture her. You think about Delphine and the egg salad sandwich and the sentence that took years to actually land. You just tell her, save whatever you won't miss, and set it up so you don't have to decide every time. She laughs, not because it's funny, but because it's such a small thing to say about something that turned out to be this large. The money doesn't change how you see yourself, not in any dramatic way. What it changes is quieter and stranger, the awareness that the version of you everyone at the store sees, the taped mirror, the shift work, the guy who's thinking about a new car is real but incomplete. You're not performing broke. You're just not performing anything. Most people build their sense of you out of whatever you happen to show them. And it turns out the version they've got is a lot smaller than the one that actually exists. It's 6:14 in the morning again, a different Thursday, years down the line, and you're standing in the same cooler, breath fogging in front of the same shelves. The tape on the mirror has been replaced 3 times since, but it's still tape. Andre's Silverado is long gone, traded in twice over. His current truck is parked 4 spots from yours, payment number somewhere past 300, still going. He mentioned it last week, not complaining, just stating it the way you'd mention the weather. Your account this morning reads $712,400. You could get the mirror fixed properly. You could buy a car that actually matches the number sitting in your account instead of contradicting it. You've thought about it more seriously this year than any year before. You don't do it today. Some habits outlive the reason they started for and turn into something else entirely, not proof of being broke anymore. Just a preference for a car that starts every morning and doesn't ask you for anything. Delphine retired 3 years ago. You never told her what her sentence turned into. You think about tracking her down someday and just saying it plainly. You saved a little before you ever saw it, and then you kept doing that for 11 straight years. And one unremarkable Thursday, it turned into a number too big to explain over a folding table at lunch. You finish the count, radio it in, and head toward a shift you don't need anymore, at a store that has no idea what's walking through its doors. That's the real ending of getting rich without anyone noticing. There's no reveal. No moment where the room gasps. Just you, still early for a shift, still driving a car worth less than a decent bike, carrying a number that changed everything except how this particular morning looks from the parking lot.